Recall that Jesus is the ultimate high priest, Melchizedek. A very significant part of the law given to Moses and Joshua involves cities of refuge to determine the guilt or innocence of someone accused of murder. If someone accidentally killed another, they were to run for their life to a city of refuge and plead their case. If the pursuers caught this individual before he made it to a city of refuge, they had the right to kill them. It was an eye for an eye, baby. The law is brutal. So much death. Interesting. If it was determined that the man killed the other unintentionally, he was to stand trial and then stay in the city until a very significant event occurred. Once that event occurred, he would be allowed to return home safely and was exonerated of the crime. What was the event? It was the death of the high priest. This too is a very significant sign that the death of the Messiah, as David said, the high priest in the order of Melchizedek, would free a man from the death penalty, the second death. When Jesus the high priest was put to death 1,500 years after the cities of refuge, men were finally exonerated and allowed to enter into the second life. Of additional significance is the harshness of the law and the harshness of this life and the harshness of God. The law, as Paul has instructed us, is not our personal way to earning a place in the afterlife. He tells us we are cursed if we think we can live according to it and earn our grace. The law is in place for a few reasons. One is simply to let us know how far short we fall of God's standard of goodness. It convicts us of the bad and good that is in all of us. Additionally, it was a necessary social norm to preserve a small culture over time. It contained the rules of the game that God followed to redeem mankind and pave the way to the afterlife in another dimension of space and time, and it can make us aware of how obvious the plan has been over time. So the other significance of this story may well be to emphasize our dilemma in this life. We need to recognize that we could never be good enough to earn our place in the afterlife. Then we should run to the city of refuge, seek the answers to the riddle of this life. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through him. But if we do not make haste when the nudge in our heart is present to seek, do not doubt that there are forces that can kill us before we reach our refuge. God's grace is tremendous, and it always has been, but the rules and forces governing this universe, this life, and the path to the afterlife are brutal. We have to get off our butts and investigate when we have the chance. God's offering of himself is wonderful. It humbles us in its simplicity that he provides the way. He takes care of us. If we resist such great a salvation, we stand condemned. And it goes back to the first covenant with Abraham. When his son asked where the lamb was for the sacrifice, Abraham replied, God himself will provide the lamb. Abraham knew it and believed it, and his faith was credited as righteousness. It is that simple. And the Tanakh makes it all quite obvious that this was the plan from the beginning, and that men over time had this plan revealed to them. They recorded it, and we have the record today. If you lack the spiritual epiphany to accept this, pray for it. We are part spiritual, already prepared to exist in another dimension of space and time. This is what God meant when he said, let us make man in our image. The core in each of us will continue to the next life. We either go through the narrow gate via the provision of God himself, or we enter through the wide gate and end up at, well, the wrong resort destination, let's put it that way. There is a heaven and there is a hell. Otherwise, this life had little purpose and humans suffered needlessly.